Welcome to ACM's Vault of Cult. This is our second episode focusing on comic book movies. Really enjoyed the first episode with Antonio when we discussed Return of Swamp Thing. Hope you enjoyed it too. Track down the film and the podcast if you haven't already. This episode we focus on Buck Rogers in the 25th century. It was a TV series, but the pilot episode got a cinema release in many places of the world and was available on video and DVD individually as a movie, so we're doing it. And really enjoyed it. James Rowe from King Street Cinema joined me once again for this. He'd never seen the movie. He'd seen bits of the TV show, but not a lot. So massive fan of this growing up with all these things that we base these shows on. And James, who's about my same age, new to it. So did he enjoy it, or is it just a case of I love it because of nostalgia reasons? It was meant to be a short chat about it, but turned into quite a long one, and we go off and talk about many things, film, sci-fi, etc. Hope you enjoy it.
In the year 1987, at Cape Kennedy, NASA launched the last of America's deep space probes. Aboard this compact starship, a lone astronaut, Captain William Buck Rogers, was to experience cosmic forces beyond all comprehension. His trajectory was disrupted by an explosion. In the wink of an eye, his life support systems were frozen by temperatures beyond imagination. Ranger 3 was blown out of its planned trajectory. Buck was frozen by elements so instantaneous and perfect that he was fully preserved and living when bound by the forces of a draconian army and taken aboard the King's flagship Draconia.
Where am I?
You were aboard the King's flagship Draconia, under command of the Royal Princess Ardala, on its way to Earth on a peace mission.
Oh.
Give him something for his discomfort.
Oh. Are you a real-life princess?
I think we've given our captain a little too much medication.
We're going home.
Great. Where's that?
On Earth.
All right.
Put down the back game aboard and put away the cards. Lucky Buck is back.
This is quite a setup.
It's Colonel Darren, commander of Earth's defenses. Take this barbarian in for interrogation.
Hey, wait a minute.
Captain Buck Rogers, you are now in the 25th century.
I think I will have that drink now. Are you familiar with rock? No.
What are you doing?
It's called getting down. It's a little before your time if it frightens you.
What is it? What's going on?
Ships simply explode.
That's impossible.
Captain, you stay out of this.
Try and stop it. Watch out, Major, on your tail.
Captain Rogers, I ordered you to stay out of this.
Girl, you need all the help you can get.
Buck Rogers in the 25th century. From Universal Pictures.
James, hello.
Hello again.
You're back.
I am.
Yeah, we said we'd get you one of the comic book ones.
Yes.
Did you listen to the Return of Swamp Thing, the last episode?
Oh, God. No, sorry.
That's all right.
Very too busy.
Too busy. Yes. Yeah. Oh, you listened to them when you were on them, yeah. Which I know you don't.
It's true.
This is the second one. I didn't really think we were going to do this, but I love the TV series of Buck Rogers, which I watched a lot growing up. But the pilot episode did get a theatrical release, a different edit for the cinema, and on the Blu-rays you can get hold of that cinematic version of Awakening, which was the original pilot double episode. So I think it does count as a movie, as it was a fairly big hit.
Yeah, it must be counted as a movie, I suppose. Yeah, it got a theatrical release.
Yeah. And you'd never seen it, obviously.
Never seen it.
Did you ever see the series as a kid?
No, I've seen bits and pieces of it, but never properly watched it. No.
Yeah, so did it just pass you by, or did you just not like the look of it?
Yeah, it just passed me by, really. I did quite like the look of it, but it just, another one of those things, there's so many shows.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I call it was on, the repeats of it, it would have been about 12, sort of tea time on BBC Two, I think it was. And I can remember vividly, I'd have been younger than that, because I used to go to, Beavers, the pre-Cubs thing, and Buck Rogers was on. I didn't want to go, I wanted to watch Buck Rogers. And then they repeated it a bit later, and it was on a fair bit, and up until recently, it was fairly regularly. I suppose it might appear on some of the Sky channels. I don't think it's on any streaming, but as I mentioned, there's Blu-rays, DVDs of it are all out, quite a reasonable price, to be honest. They've only done 2 seasons, but we're mainly going to talk about the movie.
Yes.
Which came out in 1979 in America.
Yeah.
3.5 million budget.
Yeah.
And it made in North America alone over 21 million.
That's true. Yeah.
Pretty impressive.
Very good, yeah.
I get the feeling it might not have been intended to be made for the cinema, hence the budget.
Yeah, I mean, it's shot for television.
Yeah,
clearly.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even widescreen, the version I saw.
No, it's not.
There is on the newer Blu-ray, there's a restored version where they might have stretched it to widescreen, but I don't think at the time. I think it would have been shown in the cinemas in Letterbox, not Letterbox, the Square.
Yeah, which is called Academy.
There we go.
For 4.3 on your TVs.
Yes. There we go. Yes. So, to me, it doesn't feel like a film. It still feels like TV. Did you get that when you watched
Completely.
it? Yeah. But you watched it. I think you watched it twice.
I have. I've seen it twice now.
Yeah. So we'll start with what your thoughts on the basic plot.
Yeah. I mean, simple, very simplistic.
Yeah.
But from today's standards, charming. You know, it's nice to watch something that is very simple. That's not overcomplicated with many characters with many different themes. You know, you get that a lot in modern shows, especially sci-fi kind of shows. Sort of like there's supernatural kind of things, or I say sci-fi. But it's just straightforward, to the point. You know, this is our hero. He's very typical of the time. You know, you got your very typical bad guys, or people that might be bad guys, might be good guys, kind of thing. But still, you're like, okay, you know where you are with this. Yeah. Okay. And it's got quirky characters. It's got funny characters. It's got nice-looking people in it.
The characters are very comic book. They're very cartoony.
Yeah, completely. And they look, it's very stylized, and just a bit. Of course, you've got to mention Star Wars. You can't help it when it's space opera type things after Star Wars was made.
I mean, it's fair to say this would not have happened if it wasn't for Star Wars being a big hit. But it's not really that. I mean, the story is nothing like Star Wars.
No, not at all. Just the overall, look of just people being in space with spaceships, bam, 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 shooting each other. That kind of thing. It
does start with. Well, firstly, what I want to mention is the intro of it is Buck. It announces that he was the last NASA space mission in 1987. They set him up on his own, basically got frozen, and 500 years later.
Yeah.
That's all done really quickly, which is great. I think it works. Nowadays, I think just watching this TV series lately, and the Resident Evil one that's been on, I think if this was made now, the chances are you'd have got him going into space, leaving his family, and all this would be going on simultaneously to...
This is it. I mean, the origin story would be there. So you'd have an origin story, at least episode or episodes, so before you even get to him being in the 25th century.
Yeah, or it would be flashbacks, which happens a lot now.
Yeah, you might get a flashback episode. Yeah. Like a whole episode of how he got to being where he is. Yeah. That sort of thing. Oh, you're right. I mean, he mentions he had his mother and father were still alive.
Yeah.
He had a brother or brothers. I can't remember if it was one or just if many. He had a relationship. Don't know if it was. He mentioned if it was a wife or a girlfriend or whatever.
Yeah.
So he had all of these people in his life, that was still there. It wasn't like he was just nobody, no family, no nothing. So that's mentioned. So yeah, if it was made now, all of those characters would be in it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. He goes from really. He doesn't get overly upset about it.
No.
But he mentions it, and then in the later series, he'll just make the odd mention to someone he misses or whatever. But he seems fine in this.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. He wakes up 500 years later, and he's pretty at the first initial thing is he thinks it's a dream.
Yeah.
Right. He thinks he's hallucinating or something clearly, and he's not too fussed because of that. But then when he realises it's not, he's still like.
It's still cool with it.
It's like, okay, all right.
Isn't he medicated as well? Don't they?
He does. They medicate him, sort of, because he says he's got a headache and he wants an aspirin. They don't know what an aspirin is, but they figure that he wants a pain medication. They give him whatever it is that they give him, and it just makes him go a bit loopy.
Yeah, that's the first sort of comedy we see.
Yeah,
he goes a bit silly.
Yeah,
and also when he one thing that I like when he's frozen, you see him frozen. Yeah. They used, I think, like something like just shower gel or something.
Oh yeah, he looks like he doesn't look frozen at all. Right?
But
stuff on him.
He did fall asleep. Well, in that scene, he's actually asleep.
Oh, that's nice.
And they use that, so that's
good.
Yeah, so it's Jill Jarrett, isn't it?
That is
Gil Jarrett.
That is the actor's name.
Yeah, because I don't know.
I think it'd be Gil.
Gil, yeah, Gil, not Jill.
Gil Gerard, I've never seen him in anything else, mainly TV apparently, from what looking up.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen him in more recent things. He's done like B-movies and stuff. He was in a film in 1976 called Hooch, which he starred in. That was a cinematic release. Never seen it. No. He was in Airport 77.
Yeah, I mean, I know of the film, but I've never seen it.
I haven't. No, I've seen the spoof.
Yeah.
But he's very of the time. He's very Lee Majors.
Oh, completely. I mean, this is why if you like that period and you have not seen this, you will not dislike this. It is everything of that period.
Yeah.
So, he is the archetypal.
It's very
cool. Ladies love me kind of guy.
He's like a space James Bond.
Yeah.
Never have been a massive Bond fan, but I think I liked this more when I was young because it's just the sci-fi element. It's a bit more fun than Bond, in my opinion.
Definitely.
And it could have the sexist elements, but I don't think in the way Bond does.
I've only seen
every woman seems to fall in love with him in this.
You said that because in the pilot that doesn't happen. Apart from the main, it does happen, but there's only two women in the show. Really, I think completely in the episode or film. But as you say, and further episodes, it's just constantly every woman he meets falls in love.
Yeah, kind of. But in this, you've got Pamela Hensley is the princess who's kind of the villain.
Yes,
she comes back for a few episodes in the series.
Right.
Also, this is mainly what I know her from. She was in Rollerball as well, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Rollerball a couple of times, love it, but I don't remember her in it as much because, I mean, Rollerball, for all its greatness, it is really a man's movie. And
I don't remember her in it.
She might play if he has a wife, I think, in the film, but doesn't really play a very major role in the movie.
But no, I think she's really good in it. She's very of the time like villain, but then she's obviously attracted to him. Reminds me of the daughter, Ming the Merciless daughter character in Flash Gordon, which was actually released after this. And this is the sort of thing that people would probably think was ripping off Flash Gordon.
But they're both are they both comic strips though?
They are, and Buck Rogers actually came out just before.
Yeah.
They might even been made by the same people. I know in the 30s the same actor played them both in the miniseries, because there was a series of this in the 30s and a TV series in the 50s where every episode bar one's been destroyed, so that's something you never get to see. Luckily the whole series of this is still available. So and Erin Gray, who her character in this is somewhat different during the series. Right. When he first arrived, she just seems to hate him for no real. But she later says because she was sort of scared.
Yeah, it's the very typical of the period trope, female trope, which is that I hate you because you're too much of a cad and rah rah rah, but really inside I really like you, and I try to hide those feelings.
I suppose that is a bit Princess Leia, Han Solo.
Yes, completely.
And and it's every woman Indiana Jones ever met.
Yeah, it's that thing. Yeah.
But there's a scene in it where towards the end, we are going to do spoilers, where they're kissing and Buck looks at his watch.
Yes, because he's got a mission.
I'm sure that's
It's James Bond.
Yeah, exactly. That's straight out of Bond, and almost that's a nod to it. In fact, it's not a. Sort of made me chuckle, but I wouldn't say there's anything in this overly sexist. Look, as in clear,
not immensely so.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just typical of its time.
Yeah, I mean, was there anything you wouldn't do now?
Well, the opening's stupid.
Oh yeah, we've got to talk about that. The opening is
he's having a dream.
Yeah,
but it's not really. It's just women posing, looking into the camera salaciously.
That's very Bond. And with the theme tune, it's the same theme as the series, which is written. The music was written by it's Glenn Larson, isn't it? Who produced it, wrote it, who done the likes of Knight Rider
he created Knight Rider, created
$6 Million Man,
and I don't. Did he create?
He had something to do with it.
Certainly probably one of the writers, but he also created Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, which they use a lot of the sets from this as well.
Yeah, it's completely the same. It looks the same.
Yeah, so that was made first, and then this. And I always enjoyed this a lot more on Battlestar Galactica.
Battlestar Galactica is more serious, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's more of a serious show.
Yeah, but it did have Face from the A-Team in it, though, so that's cool. This is not serious.
No, this is good. This is good times. Good times, fun show.
And we're going to have to mention the robot character.
Oh, of course. I mean, it is the star of the show.
Yeah.
Twicky.
Yeah, I was going to do an impression.
Okay, you want to?
No, I'm not going to do it. He does the little beep 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 thing. Originally, he was only going to talk like that.
Yes.
Because they thought it was too much like R2-D2.
Right. Yeah.
They decided to give him one-liners, basically. And I love how he references things that wouldn't apply to them.
No,
he references like getting in a taxi and stuff.
Taxi. You dirty. That's another one.
And he says things like groovy, which is like, no.
But you're my kind of guy.
Yeah. So.
Which is the last line in the film, by the way.
But he becomes his little buddy, and. But it's interesting because it's quite a well-known actor in the costume, Felix.
Again, like loads of obviously a dwarf actor, and in many
loads of things.
Just name anything from the period he would have been
the
in.
things that I've written down that he's in that I would know him from is Batman Returns, Ghostbusters 2, and Spaceballs.
Yeah.
He's actually got a familiar face.
He was in Ewok as well.
Yeah, He's most well known for this, and what I find interesting is he's got a human-looking face, but there's no expression on it, but it still seems to work.
Yeah,
and that's all in his body movements,
absolutely,
and he's quite restricted in that.
Yeah,
not as restricted as say R2-D2, but there's no flashing lights going on or anything. Voiced by Mel Blanc, who I don't think is credited in this. He is in the series,
right?
But I don't think.
I didn't see a credit for him. I don't think.
I don't think so, but he is him. And I think to save money in the second series, they've done a lot to save money in the second series, and mainly the scripts, didn't write them. But they re-voiced him, and the fans complained, protested, wrote to him, and they changed him back. They did get him back. They listened, which is quite interesting.
But did he not want to do it?
I think it was a budget thing.
Oh right, they couldn't afford him.
Yeah, well they just want to cut back on budget. The first series is very like the movie, very now be described as campy. Lots of different sets, all the costumes, that sort of thing. The second series they moved it all to they were in a starship,
right,
and it became like Star Trek. And there was a character called Hawkman who was pretty much like Spock, who was really serious. I still quite like it. It's still for me very watchable. So some great episodes, but it's just not the first series.
Sure.
A lot of that came from our man Gil, who wanted it more serious, apparently, which is a shame because I never looking at this is not the sort of thing that would have run forever because of the money they spent on it, and back then more than now I think time has changed. If you look at something like was remembered fondly like the Munsters, that only ran for like 2 years, and then people sort of got bored. And moved on, so to speak. And the thing with the Munsters was that was black and white, and then Batman came along in 1966. I think they clashed, and that was bright, colourful, and it just wiped the floor with it, really. And then Batman only ran for 2 or 3 years itself.
It was short.
But they made a lot of episodes in that short time. Probably all kind of filmed at once and just get the actors in and really fun. But the Batman I wanted to mention because a lot of the villains went on the actors. They called back basically for this. They wanted. You had Cesar Romero. Is it Frank Gorson? Is it who was the Riddler? Roddy McDowall, who was great in everything, and Julie Newman. And then also you had guest stars from the time, like Jamie Lee Curtis was famously in it. In I think the 2nd or 3rd episode, and that would have been when her career was just
starting up. So people would know her face, but it's just not a huge star yet.
I think it might have been after Halloween, her trying to do things more family orientated, because she did have that sort of scream queen it was prom night around the same time, and something Terror Train.
It was until Trading Places.
That's
this is when she starts to become more sort of known in the mainstream movies, not just horror films.
Which is a great film.
It is.
So you sort of, Pamela Hensley was the guest star in this, I suppose, but she wasn't that big, but that's how I see it. But there's a lot of sort of character actors in this. What was he? Joseph Wilsman, we mentioned, or Wiseman, is it? I can't.
Wiseman.
He's in loads of stuff.
He's hardly in it. He gets accredited in the opening credits as a sort of guest star.
They talk about his character a lot.
Because he's the father of the princess.
Should we mention his look? And that's something that probably wouldn't be done now. He basically looks like Ming the Merciless.
It is that sort of Ming the Merciless thing, and obviously the film hadn't come out yet, the Flash Gordon movie, but the character existed and the look existed, so I'm sure they probably thought of that as an inspiration.
But I don't think you'd do that look now.
And maybe I don't know the comic strip of this, Buck Rogers. I don't know if a character like that existed in the comic strip. Maybe that's what it's based on. I have no idea. But you're right. Today, it just looks trashy.
It's very Fu Manchu. So I don't think you'd do that.
It would get a lot of complaints now. It just wouldn't bother.
You got to think this is 42 years ago.
Sadly, people then who were Asian who would have seen it would have just thought, well, that's just to be expected. There's warnings at the beginning of Flash Gordon now. Just this is of its time, which I think is fair that they do that, and people moan about it. But I think the mistake they made with the Flash Gordon movie, and it was another budget thing, is if, like in the comics, he had a green face, I think people wouldn't worry so much because he's obviously an alien then. Well, that's true. That is another element to it, of course. We are talking about, it's not playing a human earthling, it's an alien. So, that's a get out, isn't it, I suppose.
But most of the aliens in the whole series, and all of them in the film, just look like humans in this.
And everyone speaks English, and there's no sort of universal translator explained why everyone can understand each other, or Babelfish, or something like that.
Like you say, it's simple, and therefore, even though when this came out on video in the UK, it had a 15 certificate for innuendo and that sort of thing, which I think is strange considering how big the Carry On films would have been about 10 years before, which would have been PG.
I'm surprised it's not a PG, to be perfectly honest.
I think it would be now. There's a few sort of things like he makes a easy easy re-entrance sort of pun and looks at the camera in a way, but that's nothing that wouldn't be. The Blu-rays are 15,
Yeah,
and
there's extra stuff on there that might make it that.
I don't think so.
No.
It says on the back contains strong language. I mean,
there's one swear word in the pilot.
Yeah,
I don't know what else there is in.
Well,
the show,
there's a bit in an episode where it really sounds like he says the F word, but you put the subtitles on and he's mentioning an alien planet or ship or something. And I really don't know why this is Silver 15. I think it might be a case of they don't want to pay to get it reclassified. Maybe. You know, you have to put it through the system again. Sure. It costs money. Yeah. And same reason why quite often, like when Alien went back to the cinema, that was a 15, but the reissue DVD was 18 because they didn't want to do that. So I think that's why it is. Also, I think they probably would never admit this, but when I was a kid, and I never saw the video cover of this and remember it being 15, but I remember the one for Airwolf, which was 18 for the pilot episode, and that really made me want to see it. Yeah. And you'll probably know the story with one of the mangas. I don't know if it was Akira or something, had a higher certificate to sell it. I don't think it was Akira, because that probably should be a 15. But
as far as I'm pretty sure Akira's always been a 15.
Yeah, but I think there's, they pushed these things to have higher certificates to make them appealing.
That may be true. I don't know of that being. I've never heard that. Right. I would say though, knowing people that have worked for the BBFC, that they would never admit to that.
Oh, they wouldn't admit it. Don't get me, no. Don't get me wrong. Yeah.
That's ethically questionable.
Yeah, exactly. I totally don't think anyone would ever admit it, but I think 8-year-old Andy.
I get it. I get it from a marketing point of view, a really sleazy marketing point of view. Yeah. But I mean, oh god, if that actually was true, that's bad.
That is bad.
That is really bad.
Yeah. There we go. Just put out. That's just a theory. Don't. But going back to the film, I mean, we touched on the sort of Star Wars. Some of after the opening, with just the intro, which became a shortened version of the intro of the series. Right. There is the music, almost classical sounding, and the ship. When you first see the ship, it's very Star Wars. Yeah. It doesn't seem as big scale, but that's very Star Wars. Yeah. There's kind of a dogfight X-wing type thing at the end, very Star Wars. Yeah.
That's right. These are all my points of you can't help it. It's impossible not to, to compare, just to say, oh look, it's a Star Wars influenced sort of thing. You just can't do it. You can't make a thing that's set in space, that's a space opera type thing. That's, you can't help but think Star Wars. It's impossible.
Oh yeah. But it's not a Star Wars rip-off.
No, I mean the story's completely different.
Yeah. Kind of even like you've got the matte paintings of the background. They don't look very Star Wars. They look.
No, they don't.
What was the French comic that more recently was made into a movie? Luc Besson done it. Do you know what I mean? I can't think what it's called.
Yeah, why am I not remembering?
Yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah. Something beginning with V. It had that sort of look. Yeah. So it's being the Fifth Element's.
Isn't that the comic? This is completely off, but the comic which was one of the influences for the visual look of Alien, like the ship and stuff. I think it was.
Yeah, they made a film about it about 5 years ago. Yeah. Which scares me. Google it. Give you something to do after the podcast. Yeah. I can't even remember the actors in it. But I quite enjoyed it, but it really bombed.
Right. But I hadn't seen it.
It was, but I mean, it had that look opposed to there's no sort of desert and sort of that sort of Star Wars look, which a lot of the films that period went for. Interesting scene or few scenes when they go into like the Forbidden City.
Yeah, and it's Chicago, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's almost that's got almost horror feel. Almost bits of it reminds me kind of horror, but also a bit like the Warriors or something like that as well.
Oh, it looks like the set of the Warriors when they're walking through the city. So it's funny because it's meant to be Chicago, but it looks like New York at that time in the late 70s, which was a lot. In the actual city, it was derelict and buildings were falling down and stuff, which is what the set is. Yeah. So you've got characters that are unnamed characters that are living in the city that are deformed. We don't know exactly what happened. They don't specifically say, but there were, it seems, a lot of different just horrific things happen. So probably nuclear wars as well.
They mentioned the Great Holocaust.
Yeah, the Great Holocaust. So it was probably things like not just nuclear war, but also they speak of the climate as well, and how now they have computers that are managing their climate for the humans, because humans can't be trusted, which is a really interesting political point that's made in the show, or the film, very briefly, that human beings are no longer allowed to control ultimately their own lives when it comes to serious matters like the climate, because they destroyed it. So that's the computers are now in control. So it almost is like prisoners in a way, which is interesting. But that's what they want. They want the computers to do it for them because the computers know what they're doing.
It's good. We'll mention the computers in a minute, but the one thing I thought was shouldn't have been comical, but like the only grave you see, really, straight away he finds his parents.
Because he leaves the city, which is a safe place to be, to go find what happened to his parents, and walking through this derelict place, he finds a graveyard, and somehow, which there's no reason why his parents would be buried there. They just there's a graveyard. I'll have a quick look. Oh, there they are.
But there's also the courtroom scene, so to speak, where it is all the robot machine. And then you've got Theo, haven't you? The character.
So there's one computer that's on his side.
Who goes about on Twiggy's around his neck, like a massive necklace who talks. And that character's all the way through the first series at least. And it was a bit bizarre because I think overshadowed by the awesomeness that is Twinkie, isn't he? So that's an interesting kind of almost forgotten character, but a really big part of the film and show.
It's the double act though, isn't it? It's the droid double act, of R2D2 and C3PO.
Which is kind of, if he had have done the beeps, that would have translated. But he's not as... He's quite... Well, C3PO is that annoying know-it-all. This guy just is right.
Who's neurotic, though.
True,
And Theo, isn't it? Which is what the robot, the computer's called. He's not. He's a bit naive when it comes to things, but he's not neurotic or... insane or crazy. He's intelligent, but a little naive and a little bit like, I just want to trust Buck as much as I can.
But he's proven right. That court scene's really interesting because there's loads of the little robot, almost head. It looks quite cool.
It does.
But it's also one of those. I've forgotten that scene. It was one of those.
Really,
should be a big part of the film.
I mean, it's done quite quickly. It leads up to a really silly bit where they say, right, we find you guilty. Sorry, just spoilers. Find you guilty. We haven't even explained what he was on trial for, but let's just say he is on trial. Something like, treason or something. And so they found him guilty, and he's going to be executed immediately. Those are the words used. And next scene, he's in a cell, or sort of a cell, which looks really nice, talking with
Wilmer.
With Will, who is we didn't mention
Aaron Gray's character.
Aaron Gray's character, who's a colonel. And she's like, all right, I'll let you go off and prove yourself innocent then. But I thought he was getting executed immediately.
Also, he's so calm about it all.
They explain why, because him being the cool James Bond type that he is, he knows he's not going to be executed.
He's cool.
Because he's too cool to be executed.
But one of the coolest things about this film is there's like a ball type party, and there's a...
that's the best. This is the best part.
The dancing scene with the balls.
It's great. I mean, we watched a movie recently which had a lot of dancing in, which I didn't think most of the time was that great, which was Girls Just Want to Have Fun. The choreography of this is fantastic when they do the ball dancing.
They're holding like these metal, like bigger than the sort of ball that David Bowie would hold. And then there's that. But you mentioned this when we spoke about doing the podcast, and you'd just seen it. how he asked for Southern Rockin' to come on. He asked for some rock music.
Yeah, he so the music that's playing when they're doing this very well choreographed, very robotic dance move is sort of Kraftwerky kind of tune. So it's again very robotic, very sort of futuristic for the time, but sounds very dated now.
Yeah,
it's great, it's fantastic. And so he's like bored of that, Buck, and he wants something. Goes to the guy who's making the music happen. He is a musician, but he's using some crazy machine to make the music happen. It's cool, looks awesome. And says, I want something rocky. Do you know Rocky, like that sort of thing? And the guy plays something. It's like, no, not like that. Just feel it. And he starts playing this really funky disco-y tune. It's nothing like rock music. And Buck's just like, yeah, that's it. And starts, grooving like he's at Studio 54 or something. It's brilliant. Yeah. It's great.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
And nothing dates a film like The Future. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you see The Future in a movie, you just think this is the most 70s thing ever.
You can think, right, this is whatever decade it was made in, that's what it looks like.
Back to the Future 2 is a prime example. The Future in Back to the Future 2.
Late 80s.
Yes, yeah. But one thing I do really like about this film is how far in the future they've set it.
Yeah.
It's like you can't catch up. Or at least, in the lifetime of somebody who watches this film, whereas Back to the Future 2 has all happened, and But saying that, those films, more things have come true than you'd think when you look at it. But with this, I really hope it does. Not the whole war.
The destruction of it.
But if the future's that clean.
Yeah, I mean, it does have, even though a horrific thing. So Earth has gone through a horrific thing, and the point that it's got to now is, like I said, they sort of live in a dome, and they're ultimately not ruled by, but looked after by computers, and it's like utopian,
Yeah.
They do have to a certain degree rely on other planets, and there's a lot of there's trading stuff, which I found those parts when they were talking about that, I was like, this is quite interesting. This could lead on to further stories that might be really interesting, how they get by and how they react and relate and have trade deals and relationships with other planets. That'd be really interesting.
But kind of does happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say he's even though it's got all these influences, and it kind of is its own thing that I like. I mean, I'm so surprised. It's been talked about for ages. I'm really surprised this hasn't been rebooted since. Unless you count the cartoon Duck Dodgers with Daffy Duck. Have you not seen it?
Has that got Mel Blanc in it?
Probably.
Because doing Daffy Duck.
Yeah, probably.
Because he did do the original Daffy Duck.
I would have done then, I reckon, because he probably died 15 years ago.
Something like that.
This would have been the 80s, I imagine.
Oh, that probably does then.
But I remember reading a year or so ago that George Clooney's company's bought this up.
Oh, okay.
And there's talk of, I think he's too old.
Oh yeah, I don't think he should do.
No, but I mean, maybe if he'd have done this instead or at the time of Batman and Robin, it could have worked.
Yeah.
I could definitely see him as a more updated version of it.
Yeah, sure.
But I mean,
25 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he must be 60 now.
Yeah, well into it.
Yeah, because Gil in this was 35 and was considered a bit too old. I mean, this is another thing with programs like this. I watched this as a kid, and there's no way that bloke's younger than me now. Come on, you just.
This is it. I mean, me and Mandy talk a lot about this. How people used to look a lot older years ago, and she reckons it's just general diet and looking after. People didn't look after themselves as well as people do nowadays, who are celebrities and whatever. So, and just general people. So, when you see someone that's famous, here you go, wow, they look old, don't they? When they're sort of like, say, in their mid-30s, you think, wow, they look about 50.
Yeah, Sid James was a prime example of that from the Carry On films I mentioned earlier. But also, it is that we saw them when we were young. So a lot of people who to us, they'll always seem that bit older.
Sure.
Because...
Sure, but, you do see, you can put someone next to, two people next to each other, someone who's like 35 now in, the 21st century, and someone who was... that age 50, 60, 70 years ago, and you go, wow. I mean, if you look at like the Rat Pack and stuff like that, like Dean Martin and people, like bloody hell, you look quite wrinkly in your 30s and 40s and stuff. You go, wow, yeah, and it's just smoking and drinking too much. I mean, that's ultimately it.
Yeah,
which people don't do as much as they used to.
No, it's something, but it's not such a thing in Hollywood now. I suppose.
Exactly.
It's. But to me, I mean, it does. It looks like he's so much older than his female co-stars. Yeah, I think,
and what he's about 7, 8 years older.
Yeah, but he looks a lot more than that. Yeah. It almost looks Sam Neill or Laura Dern at some points. Not that he looks that old, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. I don't know what the age. Well, there's about 20 years between them two, I think.
Yeah. So, I don't know how old Erin Gray was in this. But she'd have been early to mid 20s. She wasn't that old. She's certainly younger than you'd think her character would be, but given her job and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking maybe late 20s, maybe at the most. Definitely no older than that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but Erin Gray did mention. I mean, I don't know if you've seen her in anything else. This is what she's most well known for.
But she's done a lot of TV, right?
She'd done a sitcom which was big in America, called Silver Spoon.
Yeah,
she was
I've never seen it.
I quite like it. I have seen it.
Yeah.
She'd have actually been 29.
Oh, right.
She was born in 1950. So she's done Silver Spoons for a few years, which was about a eccentric dad looking after his kid, kind of a Richie Rich update of the 80s.
Okay.
But the dad was the comedy along with the kid, so sort of double act, and she was the she basically worked on the secretary but ran the house, and that ran for quite a few years, quite enjoyable, but for another very of its time. And she pops up in Jason Goes to Hell.
Yeah, you mentioned this when we chatted about it before, which I have seen, but I don't remember her. Because I don't remember them filmed that many years ago.
Yeah, I mean, she's one of the victims basically, and the spoiler in that. But then a lot of TV work. The last thing is Tim O'Connor, who we haven't really mentioned. He's in it.
Yes.
But not in a lot of this at all, but he's more in the series.
He's the doctor who, gives us a lot of exposition of the position that Buck's found himself in.
Yeah, and he's basically he's more of the double act with Theo in the series.
Right.
Because I think they realise people are going to like Twinkie, and he goes off to go with Buck.
Yeah.
But the last thing he made was a film called Dreams Awaken, a TV movie with Erin Gray. So they worked together, and I imagine that might be quite sci-fi. Never seen it, but he was in a lot of stuff as well. 120 credits.
Yeah.
In the second series of this, his character goes, and a British actor, is it David Hyde White? Is that his name? Like a Shakespearean actor, well, not Shakespearean, classically trained. You know, he came in it towards the end of his career, and apparently really hated it, and really hated being in it. And it was one of those they totally changed everything for the second series, and probably to revamp it, but just ruined it.
That's fascinating. If the show was popular, if it was doing extremely well, I would be so surprised that that they would change it, not only based on just if the show was doing really well, but the producers and the writers and everybody involved, if it wasn't their idea, you're telling me it was Gil's idea. The guy,
well, he was pushing it. Right. I mean,
I'm so surprised that if it was doing well, that they would have said, unless he said, "I'm just going to quit, like straight out quit if you don't make this show a bit more serious." I would have. I can't imagine. That's an error, really. That's a huge error to make.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It might. I mean, I think it was doing well, but maybe it just wasn't doing as well as.
Yeah.
And
they would have liked.
Yeah, and I mean, sci-fi was still a massive thing because it would have been before Return of the Jedi came out. It was actually cancelled. I'm trying to find the name of that actor. He's someone really famous. But I can't. But And then they brought in this Hawkman to make it more like Star Trek.
Yeah.
There might be the Star Trek movie had been released.
Well,
When was that?
79.
79, so maybe off the back of that they wanted a Spock type.
Maybe.
Or maybe they would just... The fear of people getting bored of it because they were spending so much money on it.
Yeah.
But to be cancelled mid-season as well is quite harsh.
Oh, that's a failure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really quite sad, really.
Yeah.
When you think about it, and it's a beloved show, but it is kind of forgotten that there was a movie. You know, everybody knows about the Batman movie. But I suppose
you mean from the 60s?
From the 60s, yeah. But I suppose that came. The series already existed. Now, if this film wasn't, so if the series had come first and then they released the film, maybe the film wouldn't have been a hit at all. Maybe they went to the theatres.
Maybe.
Yeah, a new sci-fi film.
Yeah,
that's how
I would have thought that was what was in the minds of the creators. They would have thought, right, let's do a Star Wars.
Yeah,
or there's Star Trek probably. Well, they probably had been working on this before Star Trek had come out. Maybe they probably knew that Star Trek was coming out, and with Star Wars as well, they probably thought, let's do a movie. Let's get this in theatres. Yeah.
It worked, you know.
It definitely did work.
Yeah,
with that budget and that box office, brilliant, fantastic.
But it might have also been a bit of overkill because I think the first series was like 24 episodes. I know that's the done thing, but if the scripts aren't that great, I mean, it's the whole funability of this gets it through. And now, not now, but a few years ago when it was shown. The double episodes were shown as movies on TV.
Right.
But I think it's really interesting how a lot of these things just failed. I mean, you look at the Planet of the Apes TV series in the mid to early 70s, you'd think that would be huge. And that only ran for like 12 episodes.
Yeah, well, some things just don't translate very well. And I mean, there were a string of Planet of the Apes films, which generally would get worse and worse as each one went on. Yeah. And I don't know when the series came out, probably at the end of, or coming to the end of the film series.
Yeah, it would have been.
And people just probably had enough.
Yeah.
Just had enough of it by that point.
And this is I don't know how they're getting away with it, but I've been thinking for the last about 4 years that people have had enough of Marvel.
Yeah.
The reviews for their films certainly aren't as good as they were. Yeah. And you're getting more negative, but there's so much of it.
But it's the same with The Simpsons. The Simpsons still existing today is insane. There's no reason to exist, and yet they still keep making them. And the level of numbers of how people used to watch it when it first started, or at least when the second season came out, which were huge, it's never going to be even half of that ever again, those kind of numbers.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're still doing it is just out of, in my opinion, arrogance.
Yeah,
that they can. But they know that they can.
I think that they desperately want this longest show ever thing.
Yeah, certainly. And I mean, with Marvel done sensible, at least with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they've tried to create something that is cohesive, works, collectively as films. You can watch them individually, but collectively you have a whole narrative, a whole arc going on with all the different characters interconnected and all that kind of stuff. And it's interesting. I found it interesting early on. It is a bit dull now.
Yeah.
It probably has, in my opinion, had its day. And it should probably end soon. And hopefully they will end it soon.
Or at least they won't, but at least take a break. That's how I see it.
Oh no,
they can't do that. They won't.
Can't,
no. But it's probably the wrong thing to compare it to, but I always think, Fawlty Towers, 5 years in the middle, granted they were getting a divorce and stuff, but then it's people. I'm the sort of person who, if a sequel or something comes out 5 years later, I'm probably more excited because I've had to wait, whereas a lot of people can't wait and they've moved on. They like other things now.
There's just no time to stand still now.
Yeah,
it's just. You don't have to wait. You don't have to do anything. You can just have and see anything. As long as it's been made, you can see it there and then, anywhere, pretty much now. Just live in a different world when it comes to how we ingest media.
Yeah, like a trailer for something will come out, Everyone can see it instantly. It's not like the days of you'd only see a trailer when you go to the cinema.
Coming soon.
Yeah.
And you didn't even know when that was.
Yeah.
You didn't even know what the date was yet. You're still like, oh, when are they going to bring out the date that tells us when it's going to be actually out?
But a trailer would come out, and I mentioned the TV series The Monsters earlier. There's a trailer for the new Rob Zombie one of that. Yeah. And the trailer's getting slated. Like to the point of everyone's moaning, and they've actually now it's not getting a cinema release. Right. They're gonna. It's gone straight to Netflix, and I think this is just the backlash of that trailer. Yeah. Now, years ago, that had gone to the cinemas. Yeah. You know, a few thousand people would have seen it, opposed to a few million in the first few days. Yeah. And it wouldn't have got this instant backlash.
No.
Maybe that might end up saving it some money if it is bad. But
I'm sure that's what their thinking is. Yeah. The backers of the film are like, okay, look, they don't want it.
Yeah.
let's put it somewhere else.
Yeah.
It might save us a bit of cash.
People are so vocal about everything. But I haven't really criticised this film much. I'm just going to criticise it.
Good. Let's be a bit critical.
Yeah. Well, when you see the sort of base of Earth, it's exactly the same set as when you see the other planets. It's just a black background, and then they've moved the ships around a bit. Did you pick up on that?
I mean, it looks to me, just of the time TV stuff. I mean, it's I personally can't see that as too much of a criticism.
No, it really stood out this time, but it's probably because I was looking.
To me, that's like something I could smile at that.
Yeah.
It's charming to me.
It's a bit Plan 9. But if you'd have seen this, in the cinema, do you think you'd have been disappointed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's
not a film. It's not a film for the theatres. It's TV. It's shot for television. It is television.
Yeah.
And they've just
all of it. I think as well is shot in a studio.
Yeah, completely.
Obviously shot in a studio. And that's another thing where, if they'd have made a big budget movie, I'm not saying they could afford to, and then done a TV series with the lower budget, I think people would have got it more.
Yeah.
But I think I love this series. I think if I'd have seen that at the cinema, I don't think I'd have been that excited to see the series. No. And the same thing kind of happened when Marvel done The Immortals a few years ago, and the pilot episodes were shown in IMAX.
Oh, right.
And that was one of their flops. They made 6 episodes.
6 episodes. Was it meant to do more? I haven't seen any of that, but I heard it was very bad.
Well, I saw it in the cinema, and to me, it was on the IMAX. It wasn't just normal cinema; it was IMAX.
Yeah.
But it was a TV show in IMAX. It was like
that doesn't even IMAX. Not going to make any difference.
No,
you can tell television.
Yeah,
you can see it.
And that was a mistake Marvel made.
Yeah,
and that could be something to do with. Yeah, maybe the first series wasn't as a bigger hit as people seem to remember it. Maybe I don't know. Maybe there was a contract for 2 series or something after the success of the film, and then they wanted. Maybe they were bricking it to save the second series, so they've done these changes.
Yeah, that's probably right.
That's probably what happened.
Yeah.
I've got a massive book about Buck Rogers, which I should have read before this, instead of just flicking through the episode guides as I was watching them during lockdown.
And I mean, this podcast is all about us watching a thing, not necessarily doing a whole sort of learning about it.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I kind of,
this is an academic podcast.
I kind of always want to, though. That's the thing. We didn't mention Tiger Man. Who's like the henchman.
I mean, there's Tiger Man. She calls one of them Tiger Man, though there's like a few of them that clearly are Tiger Men because they look different. But body. They're all big guys, but some of them are a bit fatter, some of them a bit taller. But they all have the same. I'm guessing they must be a race of people that are tiger human, Tiger Men. Yeah.
And big old fella.
Yeah. They don't talk.
No.
But
they act all hard, then get beat up.
That's
what they do.
Yeah.
There's lots of the action scenes. Lots of. It's not like real fighting. It's lots of just instantly getting knocked out.
Yeah.
Buck's got a kick. He does.
He does. It's a sort of I don't know if it's karate, or what, I don't know. It looks a bit like a kind of martial art, but
it's just he's just.
And then he does some chops as well. Yeah. It gets a bit Austin Powers.
Yeah, well, in Quantum Leap, Sam Beckett had a kick, didn't he?
Yeah, but he did do martial art, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Was it karate? I
don't know what, but he did a reference. But they do mention that he's got. They sort of joke about it later on that he's got this one kick that he uses.
Yeah.
But yeah, the action in it is very TV, very
completely.
If you put the sort of pow and silly music, it could be Batman.
Yeah.
But what?
Absolutely.
Why does this come?
Times.
Yeah,
you know.
But this week we're talking about this as well. We do the. I put this for the podcast because it's kind of forgotten in a way. I mean, forgot it even got a cinematic release. But I assumed the film didn't do very well.
Yeah, but you assumed wrong.
Yeah, but it was kind of like right now it's a TV thing. It was kind of strange, and it went. I remember this reading this in the UK. It went up on ITV. They put it up against Doctor Who, and the first series at least was beating it in the ratings, which I kind of think is a bit stupid. It's like, why try? You've got this sci-fi. Why try to beat the other sci-fi? Why not put it on a different time so people can watch? Especially then, when there was no video, even probably then. No. It's just competition. Whereas, if say Doctor Who was on, followed by Farmers Weekly, put it on when Farmers Weekly's on, because then you'll get the audience flicking over.
Yeah.
It's like they sometimes just try to destroy themselves.
They're competing. They are competing with. We have a similar show to you.
Yeah.
We want to prove that our similar show is better than yours.
Yeah.
That's how they do it.
Doesn't always work, though, does it?
No, it doesn't. But that's TV. That's how they do that.
That's mental.
I agree. I don't like the competition, the dog eat dog element to it. But that's how they do it. At that point in time, Doctor Who was not popular.
It was on the way.
It was on its way down. It was the end of Tom Baker, coming to the end of Tom Baker, who'd had a huge run, longest run I think of any Doctor, and people would just had him.
But it carried on, didn't it?
It did carry on.
There's another Doctor.
They flogged that horse for a good number of years following.
Yeah.
It was something that was just like The Simpsons. Those numbers are not coming back, but you're going to keep doing the show. And then in the end, because it was such a loved show, the new BBC runners were just they wouldn't get rid of it. And then one came in, and he didn't like it. I can't remember his name, but he didn't like sci-fi full stop, and so he hacked the show. Okay. And that's how, because if there was someone in charge who liked it, it was always going to stay on.
But I think this was the first show on the other side to beat it with ratings.
Right.
To that point.
I'm not surprised. Yeah, because I don't think there probably would have been a show like it on television on ITV. No, Sapphire and Steel.
Battlestar Galactica maybe.
Was that on ITV?
I'm not sure.
No, I don't know.
But that was popular, and this is from the makers of. So that was
So it's possible. There might have been something else, but I can't think of.
What would you have watched of those two? Would you have been loyal to Doctor Who?
I probably would have been, but I probably would have flicked.
Yeah, but this is to us now. It seems insane that you had to watch it there and then.
Or you would have flicked back and forth if I was getting bored.
You might even have to get up to flick back. Pre-remote control.
Maybe in the late 70s.
Or if you had money, you could get the Tiger Man to flick it over for you. That's it. It's strange because nowadays people would, I'll just watch both.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's hard for younger people, especially to
imagine the days of being next. Well, you're right. I mean, I remember having a television that wouldn't have had remote control. So, there are some points where that was the case, even in our time. And I remember being like by the TV, going back and forth on two shows, clicking the button.
Also, I think ITV would have lost viewers back then when they went to adverts. People would flick over.
Of course.
But that's why people pay their license.
That's why they pay their license, exactly. We haven't really said anything too negative about it. This show, I don't really think, for what it is, there isn't really too much negative to say. It clearly is of its type, well put together, well made, and sells itself really well as something for television, not as a movie, but on the big screen, but as a TV show. This is a really good pilot. This is like
it introduces all the characters.
Yeah, exactly.
You get.
It doesn't bog itself down with loads and loads of information, loads of characters with loads of backstory. It just gets straight to the point of what it wants to give you, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean,
and the acting's fine. There's no one in it that's bad. It's got fairly, everyone in it's good. Decent enough for TV. Probably some of them should be doing better work.
But all the characters, even the villains, are quite likeable. And that's what.
Absolutely.
And I want to have a pint with Bach. It's interesting. I've always found James Bond character, or mostly, and he's been played by, quite arrogant, and I don't like him. Whereas I like Bach. He's got his sense of humour isn't to up himself. I mean,
he's very American. I mean, he's very of that time, very typical sort of American kind of guy. Who's
he's a bit cheeky.
Cheeky, that's right. Sort of a bit sort of, hey, look, I know I'm the best. I don't need to go around saying I'm the best. I just am. And I'll be fine. And if you're with me, you'll have a good time. That's kind of the attitude.
He'd also help you out.
Yeah, of course. He's a good. He's not a dick. He's not like someone in the sense of, I don't care about anyone. He clearly does care about people that are his friends and all that kind. He's
mentioned earlier, there's got to be the comparison. If you look at Gil Gerard's acting compared to Sam Jones in Flash Gordon, he's so much more charismatic.
Oh yeah,
he hasn't maybe got the look.
Well, he's an actor for a start.
Sam Jones thought he was. Whereas, they didn't have to dub his voice over. And it's that too. Imagine if you could combine the charisma and acting abilities with the looks of Sam Jones, you'd have the perfect sci-fi hero.
Yeah,
or Harrison Ford.
I was about to say, I was going to go Harrison Ford.
So imagine that just before Empire Strikes Back came out, George Lucas went to the cinema to watch this. Like, phew, thank God. Anyway, Empire's out soon.
Yes.
But then, chances are they'd have put this, because Star Wars would have been shown for many years at the cinema, probably off and on.
Completely.
So they'd have stuck the trailer for this before Star Wars, got people excited.
Absolutely.
And it would have had a definite, this is going to be shown for X amount of time, and then it's going to be on, the series is coming out, and then it won't be at cinemas again. Whereas a film back then would.
Played for years if they were popular.
I bet people were also a bit annoyed with they'd see this film at the cinema. It's going to be a TV series. They paid their money. Then they first flick episode 1 of the TV series, and it's the same thing. They'd be like,
that's a bit annoying. Seen this.
I'm assuming that's what happened. I think it is.
Probably. But would they split it up into two episodes?
Yeah, so really you've got to sit through the same thing 2 weeks in a row. And then it would say, they could have just shown the next episodes, because you've got the intro, you've got the why he's there.
I mean, you could do that, but I mean, of course, some people wouldn't have seen it at the cinema.
Well, they should have paid their money, Tom.
And I'm sure even some people wouldn't mind seeing it again.
That's true. Yeah.
But you are right. I'm sure that it was. There would have been people that would have been annoyed with that. As well. So.
Yeah, and it's one of those many things from this era what just makes me want to buy action figures.
I mean, it's got all the right looks for action figures. Completely, like I say, there is nothing wrong with it. Like, there's nothing. The sets aren't bad. The costumes are good. The acting's is fine. It's all all fine. It's just like, it's one of them things where you just go, okay, that works.
Yeah, and actually rewatching it, I think. It's more watchable than, say, the A-Team or Night Rider.
I agree. I think much more.
Because it is all about the style and the image and that sort of thing, but it has got a plot. Mm-hmm. It has got, well, maybe because it's based on a comic book. Yeah. And a comic book, weirdly, I've never really had the interest to read. Right. I love this series. I'd definitely watch any sort of.
It was comic strips, wasn't it? It was like in newspapers and stuff like that. So, yeah.
But then it did turn into comic books and radio shows. And
I read that, the radio shows and the serial, wasn't it?
Yeah,
the film serial.
The film serial, I've seen some of those, and the actor, whose name escapes me, I'm not going to look this one up. Who also played Flash Gordon, does appear as an older pilot in this, which I think is really nice. And it's almost like passing, and
passing the torch,
and
passing the buck.
It's good. You're proud of that. You should see the smile on your face. Yeah, it's just really likeable. And it's one of those. I think I've shown this to you, who about we are my age. Be interesting, someone a bit younger than us who'd grown up with the likes of maybe Buffy and then later Game of Thrones, to see what they'd think of it.
Sure.
And if you are listening and you are of that age, let us know, because I'd be really, really interested to see. I don't think you'd dislike it, but you'd probably just think, what?
Yeah, it's a bit odd.
Yeah, but you'd be laughing, probably thinking you're laughing at it, but you're actually laughing with it. Like, I know people who've watched the 60s Batman and be like, oh, stupid, it's meant to be.
Yeah,
it's a comedy.
It's silly, it's camp silliness.
Yeah. It's just...
which this is as well.
Yeah, not as much.
No, not to that extent, but absolutely is in the sense of it's meant to be fun. You're meant to have a good time with it. You're not meant to...
It's Saturday tea time telly,
which
sadly missed with modern TV. Is everything seems to be... I suppose you've got the sort of, which is coming to an end, the sort of, Legends of Tomorrow type DC shows, and then Marvel, some of them, you've got Miss Marvel and things like that, but you've not got that, Lois and Clark was kind of like this, but 10 years later. But
episodic things don't exist anymore today.
Yeah.
You don't have just a story every week,
which
kind of thing.
Kind of works. It's almost like a sci-fi sitcom because of that. It wraps up. But I suppose things change and people... nothing to say that 20 years down the road shows like this won't happen again.
Maybe make a comeback.
And at the moment, the latest Marvel Love and Thunder, the 4 one, that's kind of silly like this. And I think that's come from maybe Marvel had got a little bit too serious.
Yeah.
So
probably. I mean, the director of that film, he makes comedies.
So we've been well over an hour, so we're going to have to wrap this up, mate. Okay. So thank you for joining us, and we'll talk about that one.
Would you like to give it a number?
I'll give it 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 4 as well.
That is spot on, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
See you later. Bye.
What a bummer.
Huge thanks to James for that. We'll get him back soon. Maybe not for any of the comic book ones because he seems to have seen them all. But in the next season, we will get some more movies out there that I'm sure he'll be keen to watch and chat about. I'm not going to talk about an Asylum movie this week. Each episode, I tend to talk about a cheesy B movie, kind of rip-off film made by usually the film company Asylum. But I haven't had a chance to watch any, and we're basically going to stick for the next few episodes just talking about comic book things, I think, because we tend to have the good long conversation and doesn't really leave much time for anything else. So they will return, but not until we finish this little season. Next episode, we'll be discussing the 1995 box office flop Tank Girl, based on a British comic. The Pooka G Players will be joining me for that. Ipswich-based musicians, kind of comedy musicians. They've been on before. I'm sure a lot of you know who they are. If not, do look them up on the socials. That'll be with you very soon. Thanks for listening. I've been Andy. This is ACM's Vault of Coal.